And welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for Opinion Court. Please use the hashtag Opinion Court. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, if you're an SMS, 22422 is our SMS line. And you can reach out to us on social media at Citizen TV Kenya or at Citizen TV News. My handle is at Ann Kiguta. That's Ann with an E. We would love to hear from you. As I mentioned before the break, we're going to be discussing U.S. President Barack Obama's visit to Kenya. I'll reintroduce my panel to you. To my immediate right, Dr. Emmanuel Kisiangani, not to be confused with his neighbor, Dr. Edward Kisiangani. Emmanuel is from the Institute of Security Studies. Thank you for coming in. Of course, Kisiangani, our Kisiangani, is our resident political analyst. Prof, are you happy to have a namesake on today?
Great, but that is conspiracy.
Yes, and we have Joe Ndungu, an international relations expert. Gentlemen, you're all welcome to the program. Prof, I'll start with you. You're particularly excitement because President Kenyatta put UN on notice and said it is quite likely that Obama can go to KU.
Yes, KU is beautiful. It's the most beautiful university in the country.
Is it?
You just go and check, and the infrastructure, everything. KU is beautiful. You won't even ask. You know, a lot of people are struggling to get into KU. We are happy probably the U.S. president will come there. So it is the correct choice.
Well, with all the excitement around U.S. President Barack Obama's visit here, Joe, yes, we tend to get a little carried away, all in good faith. We think of him as a Kenyan by extension.
True.
And that many times may miss the point of the fact that this is perhaps the world's most powerful leader, leading the world's most powerful country. What's the import of his coming to Kenya?
Oh, it's very significant in that the U.S. is the leading hegemony in the world, which means that it controls almost everything politically, militarily, socio-political. So the impact is big. It's the leader of the free world coming to Kenya. So we should milk it for all it's worth. We are, of course, happy that he's a Kenyan, but we also have to be cognizant of the fact that he is the leader of the free world and he's coming here, and we should milk all the public goods that we can get from him while he's here.
And what would those be?
Different things. There are many issues that Kenya has been contending about: free trade, UN reform. I think those are things that maybe we should discuss with him and get him to align with what we want.
Would you say, Dr. Kisiangani, that the U.S. has become increasingly interested in Africa purely because of China's influence?
There are those who will argue that way. If you look at Obama's first term, he came to Africa, I think came to two countries, Egypt and then Ghana. And apart from public pronouncements in terms of actual policy, that will promote engagement with Africa, there was very little. So subsequently, you had this meeting, the U.S. Africa Leadership Summit, where you had concrete proposals, commercial deals being signed. And some people are arguing that that was a response to especially China's presence on the continent. So there are those who argue that way, that for long, under Obama, they've just realized that China is doing much more things, doing much more engagement than they themselves, and therefore they have to respond to that.
Prof, what would you say is the core of U.S. interests here? Is it purely business? Are they interested in politics? What do you think it is?
There are many things that the United States is interested in with regard to Africa. First of all, and this one we can debate up to tomorrow, there is now the Colder War. The Cold War has become colder. Because internationally now, what used to be the Cold War, the struggle between the Soviet Union and the United States has graduated to new levels. The competition for smaller countries and the less developed spaces in the world is still on between China and the United States. So Africa and Kenya in this particular case is important. So, and to do that, you need that you require that the political values of these spaces within the third world are in consonant with the values of what my brother is calling the free world. So it's trade, but trade based on the values of the United States, what they call democratic governance and so on. So it's not surprising that when you read the news, I saw that some of the things that the president would be interested in is politics, because he's coming to discuss issues of governance, of democracy and so on. And because if people are following the values of a country like China, for example, which does not care how you govern yourself, even if you are governing yourself from the toilets, and the toilets are stinking as you eat lunch or anything, you know, you cannot have that kind of space for Africa. For the United States, it would like to sanitize the space with its own values, and then trade with you. So it will be both the issue of trade, because it's coming for this global entrepreneurship conference, and they are looking for opportunities for American investments. We are hoping that he probably will announce that there can be now direct flights from Nairobi to New York.
Right.
These are the possibilities which will expand the business space. But also, he'll take that opportunity to say that these things cannot happen when you constrict your democratic space. So he will have to tell President Uhuru that if you have done things that constrict the space, stop it. And that is what the opposition is capitalizing on. So, and then he will say, where can we help? Because business environment, democracy cannot thrive when there is insecurity. So they will, our local politicians will give him their priorities, and then he will say, we can do the funding, we can strengthen the security sector. Where there have been weaknesses, you remember, he has already mentioned that he's going to deal with corruption. Part of the complaints we have had in this country is that the security personnel in this country have been gripped with corruption, and that's why we have not got it right in very many instances. So probably he will ask the president, your government can crack the whip on corrupt officials within the security sector, so that we bring in money, assist you to strengthen your security operators. So it will be a mix. But just before I give others time to discuss that, I think Anne, the other bit that Kenya is surrounded, and I'm sure this must be a matter of concern for the United States, that there are the dwindling fortunes of democracy within this region.
We're the good kids in a bad neighborhood.
You know, if you look at the situation in Burundi, it's not very good. And even our own leaders in Eastern Africa chose Museveni to go and mediate. And yet the dispensation that is taking place in Burundi is actually the dispensation that is there in Uganda. Then Rwanda seems to be getting into the question of the situation of a life president. You look at Ethiopia, nothing democratic promising. You look at South Sudan, it's going down there. So he must be worried, actually, that the president might want to ask President Kenyatta, how are you going to cope with these people who don't believe in democracy?
And
I think our president will have to give an answer to that. I suspect that it was the direction.
Let me bring in Joe to this conversation. Let's focus on Kenya specifically. And as Prof has mentioned, we're in that quote-unquote bad neighborhood, and I imagine the eyes of the world are, will Kenya be able to stick to the path? But is Obama's visit here signal enough to say that whilst we are often very hard on ourselves, and then, we have, I'd like to believe, a very robust media, who keeps government accountable, etc., that perhaps we're not doing as badly as we think in terms of democratic values and good governance?
No, in terms of democratic values and good governance, I think Kenya is a specimen to talk about in Africa. So I don't think we're doing that badly. But at the same time, I think the United States recognizes that Kenya is a transitional democracy. And transitional democracies usually go through certain stages and certain problems, so like teething problems. And usually this takes about 20 years. It's a process that will take maybe 20 years. So far, in as much as we're usually harsh on ourselves, I mean, we are on the right path. But just to go back to what the Professor was talking about when we talk about China and the United States, it's important for us to recognize that the development model that the West had been pushing, that you need democracy in order to develop, has been shattered by China, because China is not democratic in the sense of a liberal democracy, but it is developing. And I think that is something that a lot of our neighbors are cognizant about, that you don't have to adopt a liberal democracy in order to develop. So you will find, for example, I wouldn't consider Ethiopia or our good neighbors Rwanda to be complete liberal democracies. They might be seen as being a little bit authoritarian, but if you look at their GDP growth rates are really high.
It's working for them.
Yes, it's working for them. So there's this notion out there that what you need is a farm hand, that Africans don't eat democracy, they eat development. So I think the United States maybe is coming to reinforce that actually, yes, the Chinese model works, but you know, it's an open market. I think the president has said it. We are open to different ideas of how to do things, but I think we're firmly in the democratic system. So I wouldn't say that it's a bad thing, but it's just reinforcing that we can develop using the liberal democratic model.
Right. Dr. Kisengani, let me ask you from the security perspective, how do you believe that African democracies, the Kenyan democracy, fits into the Western democracy model, and how important is that sort of stability in terms of economic growth and, you know, just general peace and security?
Yeah, let me be upfront in stating that while my colleagues are saying that Obama may come here to try, or in the region to push those values, I have my own reservations because history tells us that in the region, some of the actors that have engaged much more prominently with the United States, Ethiopia, when it comes to the fighting terror inside Somalia, you have also Uganda. Some of the actors that the U.S. has engaged when it comes to war against terror are, by all intents and purposes, I mean, I doubt if under the definition they can qualify as democratic. So I have reservations around that. But in terms of democracy, there are certain tenets. Obviously, there are those ideal. I doubt if there are any number of countries that practice the same form. I mean, a democracy that takes in all dimensions the same form. So we're doing a number of things. We're opening up, or rather, our media is relatively free if you compare to the challenges, but to some of the countries in the region. We've been having elections. So there are certain tenets that we are practicing as a country. I think Obama in the region may want to publicly speak about reinforcing that. But in terms of, now you asked whether our democracy and its contribution to development, yeah, the debates around the debates, we have seen countries that develop actually without necessarily, in the cases Rwanda and Ethiopia, without necessarily practicing democracy. It's about what some people will call, there's a term I forget, but a leader who provides leadership.
Benevolent,
but not a
I don't
it's not a benevolent dictator.
But yes, you know very well that it is true that there are some countries which look like they are developing, but they do not have a democratic tradition, or they don't support democratic values. The concern of the United States is not that they are developing. The concern of the United States, I think, is going to be that how sustainable is this? Because right now Kenya, because you need to focus on the next 50 years, for example. Is it going to burst? Because there will be massive rebellion against the regime that will bring down everything that has been achieved. If you become intolerant, and the likelihood of developing up to the top and then you collapse in one day, like Romania collapsed, is real. That's not what the United States wants Kenya to go. It is possible that they are doing business like that, but Kenya, because of its strategic placement in this region, Kenya, the U.S. will keep telling Kenya that you are on the right track. Don't go the Uganda way, because we don't want it to come down in one day.
You think it would start an African spring?
Yeah.
Is that where you're going?
In my opinion, sorry.
I'll just allow you to sort of pick it up and put it on silent. It's already ringing on air. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You know, Anne, in my opinion, the African Spring in this region is likely to begin in places like Ethiopia, Uganda, and Rwanda, rather than Kenya. Because the political space is being constricted, and there reaches a point of no return, and it can burst. But it is unlikely to occur in Kenya because of the space.
I think let's not be too harsh on Rwanda and Ethiopia. I think Rwanda and Ethiopia are democracies. I want to call them democracies with African what's the word?
There's nothing like that.
There is no such
There is that one.
What is the color of that democracy?
It's African. That's the color.
The color is African?
Yes, it's African.
I'm quite skeptical about him trying to find a new meaning for democracy. I doubt if those two countries are democratic. But the point we're trying to say, for me, if you look at the history of the United States, its engagement in Africa and elsewhere, even in the Middle East, the primary considerations about interests. They may speak the language about long-term stability, but when it comes to practice, about interests. So we're engaging with Ethiopia, with Meles Zenawi, regardless of him arresting literally every other opponent, but we have to engage him.
So there's double speak on the part of the United States in terms of foreign policy. That's what you're saying?
It's democracy, a key tenet of the United States. It's a virtue they try to promote outside. But when it comes, there's a difference between principle and practice. You may aspire certain values, but you go to the ground and you have Al-Shabaab in your neighborhood, you want to deal with them. In terms of promoting democracy will become secondary. You look at who you can work with to actually eliminate that.
Do you think they've been tougher on Kenya, and I want us to move on from this point, but do you think the U.S. has been tougher on Kenya than the rest in the bloc, especially, going back from the choices has consequences, stage to now, because you're saying we're willing to deal with Meles Zenawi, but we're going to make it that much more difficult for Kenyan leaders. Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. Okay, they have been slightly harsher because Kenya has more potential, and our system is a bit different because we are more inclined. We are already moving towards a kind of a liberal democracy. So also you have to look at it in terms of geopolitics, in terms of Kenya's strategic place. Kenya is very strategically important for the United States and also for China. It's a gateway to East Africa. If you look at projections for population, particularly in this region, if you look at, for example, the growing middle class, Kenya is very strategic in terms of everybody wanting a bite of Kenya. So they might be harsh because they want the best for us.
We're the Murembo in the room.
Yes.
Fair enough. Allow me, I beg your pardon, to press on to another controversial matter. There is sort of a silent apprehension that he may mention the gay debate. Do you think it's a big deal if President Obama was to come to Kenya and say, look, you need to embrace people of diverse sexual orientations? Would that be a major problem? Would he have crossed the line?
As far as I'm concerned, in fact, he will cross the line with me if he starts that way. And you see, my brother has just talked about American interests. You see, these American interests are also strange. First of all, you should understand that you said Obama is a Kenyan. He isn't.
She said.
No.
I'm quite sure it is.
Yeah, but the point is, he embraces some of these free values. The values they talk about can go overboard. And,
is that one of them?
And one of them is this gay lesbian movement thing. Actually, sometimes I don't know how to pronounce them. But you see, the point is, if he mentions them, he alienates a lot of people in this country who are very sensitive to that kind of thing. Let him also think about our interests, our Kenyan interests. Just yesterday, we heard that a school in Western Kenya was about 19 boys were chased away from the school because they were gay. Then this afternoon, we heard from the media again that the boys had written to Obama to come and save them. This one, we tell the American president, please, save that for your American interests. But don't start preaching American interests here with regards to gay, because we also have our interests. So I am sure the American president will respect our values also. Just like we can respect him, we don't go to lecture them about not doing gayism, but let him not mention that here. If he mentions it, he will alienate a lot of people in this country. We shall be divided, and we shall move away from the agenda he has come with.
Exactly. I think we cannot limit Obama from saying what he wants to say. He's the head of the United States of America. But for me, my key concern is about the consequence if he were to make such pronouncements. I think the consequence will be much more negative.
What do you think they would be?
Yeah, because currently, whomever is doing their thing, whomever is gay out there, they may be living their lives. But if you come here and publicly speak about that, we've seen the school which he mentioned, Right now, there are those students who don't subscribe to that notion. And they're quite bitter because the perception right now, those pejorative terms that are being used towards that school, they're very uncomfortable, some of them, about that. So you raise this debate, for me the consequences will be much more negative than if you just keep quiet.
And partly, Anne,
right,
the reason why the President of the United States is talking like that, the President of the United States has become President of the United States by assembling minorities. He's a minority president. He assembled minorities and put them together to form a majority. And one of the minority groups that he seems to have assembled is this gay movement. And then the Hispanics, the Mexicans, he put them together and pretended he was a president elected on a majority thing. So for him, he's pursuing a different political agenda for what he calls marginalized groups. I don't think that that is important for us. I think he should stick to the governance values. He should stick to how we can improve our security. We can open as much space as possible for him to bring American investors here. But he must also understand that we have a constitution that does not allow us to be gay. So until we decide to change that constitution and allow ourselves through a collective will, I think he should keep it up.
All right, Joe. Okay, you want to comment on that?
It just goes back to what I was saying about democracies and types of democracies. This is the part I don't understand about Kenyans. People accept that we are a liberal democracy, yet we want to reject certain parts about what liberal democracy is all about. That's why I say that we are actually democracies with African characteristics. We cannot completely wholesale agree to everything that the West and Europe agree to, right? And that's where the slight change begins. And I think it's important for, I know like he said, we can't stop him from saying that, but I think there needs to be a recognition that we are an African nation with the African culture. And I'm not saying this in any form or fashion to take any side, but the reality is what he has said. But so
I'll leave it there. I'll save you on that one. Let me come back to you, Dr. Kisengani. Let's speak. You touched on this a little earlier. I want you to focus on the security cooperation between Kenya and the United States, and you mentioned the example, of Ethiopia, perhaps, doing much better in that terms, in that sense. What kind of collaboration would you want to see between the U.S. and Kenya that would say the U.S. is actually being a true partner to Kenya, even in comparison to other actors in the region?
There are a number of areas. First, in security, when it comes to security, we have internal dynamics, but we have also our neighborhood, Somalia and South Sudan. For me, importantly, I get very disconcerted when I see the United States issuing travel advisory, issuing warnings about terror, and then, like it happened with Garissa, these things coming to happen. So it tells you that there's a disjuncture somewhere between these two countries, which in public we gather that they are sharing intelligence. So I think there is need to improve coordination around that. But much more importantly, I think for Kenya, what I would urge the Kenyan government actually to do, if you look at Ethiopia, one thing Ethiopia has done is that Ethiopia has its troops inside Somalia. The troops are inside Somalia on the border, so they are protecting Ethiopia. I think it is important for the Kenyan government, because Kenyan troops are operating under a UN mandate, although they are under AMISOM, for Kenya to actually ask possibly the support of the United States so that we can relocate our troops to provide security to our border. But more importantly, for South Sudan, I think it is important for Obama to make a public statement, because what is going there is a disaster. I think he needs to be very categorical that it should not be business as usual, because these fellows seem to be quite happy. They go sign agreements, they don't stick to them. So I think U.S. has leverage over South Sudan. They should make a public statement around that, which should send out a message so that at least the peacemaking process in South Sudan makes progress.
But you know, Manuel, also there's the other bit of interests which you talked about. There are interests. America has its own domestic interests. And so when it talks about security, again, it represents it's what? It's the interest. So when it issues alerts, the purpose of the government of the United States is to protect the citizens of the United States anywhere in the world. So when they realize that their citizens are in danger, they are perfectly right to issue. That is their approach. That is their modus operandi for dealing with the security for their citizens. But what's critical, I think, with regard to Annie's question, is what possible areas I think we should enhance, double, even 30 times, go 30 times, to increase the intelligence sharing processes between the United States and Kenya. I think, and if we do that, we shall improve the quality of information we receive and even act on certain things before they happen. I think that is critical. And then secondly, the United States should help Kenya to fight corruption within the security sector, because the security sector in Kenya has, even if you bring resources, it should ask Kenya, where can we help to make sure that even when we bring the resources to this country, in the security sector, those resources are not wasted, but they go to the use that they are meant for, so that we can strengthen ourselves. And then also it should work with our security sector in terms of training. Training is very, very important, because we need people trained in different aspects of the security, and they will be useful when problems occur. But finally, what I would like to say on this point is this: we are talking about the U.S. president coming here as if he's just coming to help Kenya. He's not coming to help Kenya. One of the things that he has already done is that, you know, and you have been to America several times, you will be shocked. You will be shocked that there are very many people in Kenya who know about America than there are Americans who know about Kenya.
True.
So the coming of the president enhances American attention on us. School
visibility.
School going kids do not know where Kenya is. And one time, you know, this cuts across Africa. One time President Bush was asked, where is the Africa? And he quickly told the journalists, Africa is, I think, in Nigeria. And you know, it was a shock. You know, even some American presidents who served before probably didn't understand much about Africa. So the coming of the U.S. president, especially in this capacity, helps to put attention on Kenya and allows more people to get interested in Kenya at private and at national level. Right. So that is what we are going to reap from it. The multiplier effect, even after he has left, is that more and more people will talk about Kenya. And they will know that other things happen in Kenya other than corruption, other than things like about HIV, but they will also see us beyond our marathon runners.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the presidential policy on sub-Saharan Africa, which is driving U.S. foreign policy, one of the things there is to promote trade, investment, opportunity, and growth. And I think we know from the world market that previously Asia was the next big thing. And now we know that Africa is the next big thing. We know that 7 out of 10 of the African economies are growing. So Kesengani is actually right. It presents an opportunity for us to market ourselves, to say that Kenya is open for business, and we are open to business for everyone, be it Chinese, American, Italian. We are open for business. So it would be a good opportunity for us to showcase what we have, and what we can do.
All right, gentlemen, I think we'll wind up there. I'll take a last round of comments on your hopes and expectations with President Obama's upcoming visit. We'll start with you, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you. For me, I think I will just end with a comment from what Prof was saying. I think when it comes to issues that concern us, Obama has enough problems with his own constituency and elsewhere. Right. So we should think more about what we can do for ourselves rather than what Obama should do for us. If you look at issues around security, there are issues that are systemic, things which we can organize ourselves, corruption, like what he mentioned. So we should think much more about what we can do for ourselves rather than what Obama can do for us. If he comes around, I think it's much more to do with symbolism. He's coming to the land of his father as a president, because we could have complained if he did not come while he was a president. So it's more about partnership rather than raising all these expectations that he's coming to sort out all our problems.
All right.
And for me, the person who is going to reap the highest, the biggest quantity of fruits from this Obama visit is President Uhuru Kenyatta. because Obama initially refused to do business with our president because of the ICC case. And I don't know why we're not talking about it. But you are a man of international relations. You should be talking about it.
Was not
No, you should have said, you know, now that he's coming, after the president was acquitted at The Hague, I am suspecting he's coming for trade, he's coming to promote American interests, but he's also coming to promote his personal interests. He's going to tell our president that when I retire, you know,
we can
be friends. My brother, I also thought that I was too much on you, and you are acquitted. So he's coming also to mend fences. That's the point I'm saying.
Right.
He's saying that maybe I overreacted over the ICC case, but my brother, you don't, after all, you don't look like a bad person. So we can do business. And I'm going to repair the damage before I leave the presidency.
Right.
So I think that on that note, he's coming to solve personal problems.
How do you think that will play out with Deputy President William Ruto, whose case is still ongoing?
I think it plays out, even Obama can start mellowing, because...
Do you expect him to, for instance, shake hands with him, receive him, and be in, in talks with him? Or is it essential contact?
No, I think he will shake hands with our president, our deputy president, because the deputy president is the extension of the presidency. He didn't campaign and was not voted in as an individual, but that is
to the contrary, Prof, it's quite unlikely, and the history is there. It's quite unlikely that even if they were to shake hands, you will not see it in the media. But just also a point of correction where you're saying Obama was quite hard on Uhuru.
No, I didn't say that.
I don't think that Obama as a person made any public statement about Uhuru. It was someone else from the youth government. So I don't think that Obama has any issues actually with Uhuru at the moment.
No, he doesn't have issues. But we are talking about what happened in the past. He was not able to do business with Uhuru. You could see a stiff guy. Even Uhuru tried to visit with the US, but you could see an Obama who is a little stiff. But now you are seeing an Obama who might, when he arrived in Nairobi, remove the tie, fold his shirt, and probably a white shirt like you buy, and then greet you, and then he will even talk about the Rockaman. That's the person.
He'll talk about the Rockaman.
But finally, I think because you told us this should be our final remarks. So I think he has enhanced the credibility of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And you can recall what I've always said on this show. I said that let the president go to The Hague. Some of the psychopaths who surround him said, don't go. But now, I said, if he goes, he will enhance his international standing. Now, you can see people, he's getting that enhancement of his status from such angles as Obama's.
It's a good look.
You know, that's very, very critical. But finally, I would say this. Obama, I think he should give our brothers from Nyanza an opportunity to see him, because they seem to own him a little more, and I think he should go and see his grandmother. It's not yet announced, but I think he should go and see his grandmother.
All right.
Yes.
First of all, I didn't know that Professor is an intellectual and a comedian. But it works. So it's good to see. Good to see that. But finally, I'll stay away from the ICC. But I think Obama's visit is a good building block from which we can build. Right now, we know that Obama is a lame duck president. So he'll be soon out of office. So it will be a good opportunity for us as a country to develop relations with the United States that will be moving forward in a post-Obama kind of era. So for me, we are the biggest winners. We are the biggest winners. We just have to milk it for all that it's worth. I think he's coming here with more than 200 journalists. There are delegates who are coming for the summit. So I think we are the big winners. Kenya is ready for business. We've put our foot forward, and we welcome everyone to come and do business with us.
Wow. Couldn't wind it up any better. Thanks for the laughs and great conversation, gentlemen. We'll be back after these messages.